At dawn, after the worst night of withdrawal Abigail Turner had yet survived, a torn page from the Psalms was found beneath her pillow. She had not put it there. She knew that first because the page was thin and soft like it had been handled by old fingers for a long time, and Abigail owned nothing that old or holy anymore. She knew it also because the night before had been a blur of shaking, sweating, retching, bargaining, and whispering words that were not prayers so much as the animal sounds of a woman trying not to crawl out of her own skin. She had twisted the sheets of the narrow bed at Mercy Ridge Recovery Center until they looked like ropes. She had bitten the inside of her cheek hard enough to taste blood. She had gripped the edge of the mattress and begged the ceiling to stop spinning. She had called herself every name she believed she deserved. And when Nurse Brenda came in with a plastic cup of water and calm eyes, Abigail had turned her face to the wall because kindness hurt worse than judgment. Now morning had come gray and blue over Colorado Springs. The mountains beyond the window were hidden behind low clouds, but Abigail knew they were there because everyone at Mercy Ridge talked about them, as if Pikes Peak were a patient relative keeping watch over the city. A plow scraped the parking lot. Pipes clanked in the walls. Somewhere down the hall, a woman was crying quietly into a towel so no one would hear. The radiator beneath Abigail's window clicked and exhaled a tired heat. Brenda found the page when she came to change the pillowcase. "Well now," she said, not startled exactly but careful. Abigail, who had barely managed to sit up, looked at the nurse's hand. The page trembled slightly in the draft. It was torn unevenly along one edge, as if pulled from a small Bible. A dark crease ran across the middle. Some of the print had faded, but one line stood clear, underlined in pencil. "Out of the depths have I cried unto thee, O Lord." Abigail stared at it. Brenda, a broad woman with silver hair braided down her back and reading glasses hanging from a cord around her neck, held the page gently, the way people hold a baby bird that has fallen from a nest. "Is this yours, honey?" Abigail wanted to say no. She wanted to say she did not want it. She wanted to say Mercy Ridge could keep its rules, its group circles, its oatmeal, its breath mints, its locked medicine cabinet, its laminated slogans, its mountain views, and its God pages hidden under pillows. But her throat was raw, and the line on the page seemed to look back at her. Out of the depths. The words knew where she had been. "I don't know," Abigail whispered. Brenda set the page on the small table beside the bed. On the table were a paper cup, a packet of saltines, a chipped blue hair tie, and the admission bracelet Abigail had torn off and then been too tired to throw away. "I'll leave it there unless you want me to toss it." Abigail shook her head before she understood she was answering. Brenda nodded. She did not smile too much. People who smiled too much in rehab made Abigail suspicious. Brenda only changed the pillowcase, checked Abigail's pulse, wrote something on a clipboard and said, "You made it to morning. That's supposed to be impressive?" Abigail muttered. "Some mornings, yes." Brenda left the room with the soiled linens tucked under one arm. Abigail sat in the fragile quiet after she was gone. Her hands still trembled, though not as violently as the night before. Her skin felt too tight. Her legs ached deep in the bones, as though winter had moved into them. She was 32 years old and felt ancient. Her brown hair, once the kind that made strangers ask if she colored it, hung dull and damp around her face. Her eyes in the mirror above the sink looked like they belonged to someone who had been rescued from a river, but had not yet decided whether she was grateful. She looked back at the page. "Out of the depths have I cried unto thee, O Lord." She did not pray it. Not then. She only read it again. Mercy Ridge Recovery Center stood on the north side of Colorado Springs, where the city began to loosen its grip and the land rolled toward scrub grass, rock, and sky. The building had once been a retreat house for a small denomination that ran out of money in the 90s. Now it had white siding, blue shutters, a chapel with a cracked bell, a dining hall that smelled of coffee and bleach, and a view of the mountains when the weather was merciful. The sign near the entrance showed a pine tree bent by wind and the words Mercy Ridge in green paint. Underneath, someone had added in smaller letters, "Recovery begins where hiding ends." Abigail hated that sentence. She hated it because it sounded true. She had arrived 6 days earlier in the back seat of her sister's Subaru with a duffel bag, 2 pairs of jeans, 1 sweatshirt, a phone Hannah took away before they crossed the front doors, and the kind of shame that made every light feel too bright. She had not come willingly. Not really. She had said yes because the alternative had finally become too small. A second possession charge. A car she had wrapped around a mailbox in Manitou Springs. A landlord changing the locks on the apartment she had not paid for. And a sister who stood in the emergency room with a bruise-colored exhaustion under her eyes and said, "Abby, this is the last ride I can give you unless the ride is to help." Abigail had laughed then, ugly and sharp. "You rehearsed that?" Hannah did not flinch. Yes, their mother would have flinched. Their father would have yelled. Hannah had learned something colder and harder over the years. Stillness. She was 4 years older than Abigail and had always seemed made of more durable materials. Hannah paid bills early. Hannah kept emergency blankets in her car. Hannah remembered dentist appointments. Hannah carried reusable grocery bags and never lost her keys. Hannah had a husband named Owen, a little girl named Lily, and a house in Woodland Park with a porch swing Abigail had once slept on after a fight with a boyfriend. Hannah had boundaries now, a word she used carefully and Abigail received like a slap. Mercy Ridge had taken Abigail after a 3-hour intake. They had searched her bag, cataloged her medication, given her sweatpants, and explained rules she barely heard. No outside calls without staff. No leaving grounds. No cash. No visitors until approved. Group attendance required when medically cleared. Meals at 7, noon, and 5:30. Lights out at 10. Honesty expected. Relapse prevention begins on day 1. Detox is not recovery. Recovery is not punishment. Healing is possible. Abigail had heard only the door locking behind Hannah. The first days had been physical misery. Sweat, chills, nausea, diarrhea, restless legs, crawling skin, headaches, dreams like broken glass. She had known withdrawal before. She had done pieces of it in bathrooms in a motel outside Pueblo, once in Hannah's guest room while pretending to have the flu. But at Mercy Ridge there was no escape route. There were nurses, vitals, bland food, monitored medication, a call button, and people who did not believe her when she said she was fine or dying, depending on which lie seemed more useful in the moment. By the morning of the Psalm page, she had crossed the first violent ridge and entered a different wilderness. Her body still hurt, but now her mind had room to speak, and it spoke cruelly. It played scenes for her when she closed her eyes. Hannah standing in a pawn shop parking lot after discovering their grandmother's ring was gone. Owen carrying Abigail out of the guest room because she had passed out half on the bed and half on the floor while little Lily waited downstairs with crayons. Her father, Jack Turner, opening the garage cabinet and finding his old pain pills missing after Abigail had visited for Thanksgiving. Her mother, Beth, before she died, sitting in a recliner with a blanket over her knees and saying, "Baby, where did you go?" Not physically, not accusingly, just grieving, as if Abigail had been leaving her body one small compromise at a time. Abigail had no answer then. She had none now. She washed her face in the sink and tried to make herself look less like a ghost. The mirror was scratched. Someone had taped a small card to the corner of it that read, "You are not the worst thing you have done." Abigail peeled at one edge until the tape lifted, then pressed it back down. She was too tired to disagree with paper. At breakfast, the dining hall smelled of oatmeal, burnt toast, and institutional coffee. People sat at round tables in various stages of repair. Some wore robes and slippers, some wore gym clothes, some wore the flat expression of those newly separated from whatever had been killing them. A man with a tattoo of a raven on his neck stirred sugar into his coffee for a long time. A woman in a red hoodie whispered to herself over scrambled eggs. 2 older men argued gently about whether the Broncos would ever find a quarterback who could rescue them from mediocrity. Beyond the windows, snow dusted the pines and made the world look clean from a distance. Abigail took oatmeal because it was closest and sat alone. She had learned quickly that alone was difficult to maintain at Mercy Ridge. Someone was always asking whether a chair was taken, whether you wanted more coffee, whether it was your first time, whether you were okay, as if okay were a thing that could be located by committee. That morning a woman about Abigail's age sat across from her without asking. She had cropped blonde hair, a freckled nose, and a sweatshirt that said Garden of the Gods Half Marathon. "I'm Cass," the woman said. Abigail looked at her oatmeal. "Congratulations." Cass grinned. "That's what I said when I woke up sober on day 3. I meant it sarcastically too. I'm not looking for friends." "Good. Friends are exhausting. I'm looking for the brown sugar." Cass reached across the table, took a packet, and tore it open with her teeth. "You're Abigail, right?" "Apparently." "Withdrawal row. Room 12. I was room 10 last month. You screamed at Brenda on Tuesday." Abigail's face heated. "I don't remember." "I believe you. You called her a prison librarian." Despite herself, Abigail looked up. Cass nodded solemnly. "Creative. Not accurate. Brenda's more of a benevolent sheriff." Abigail almost smiled, which annoyed her. "Why are you talking to me?" "Because you look like you're trying to disappear into oats, and I have a weakness for impossible projects." "I'm not a project." "No, you're a person. Projects are easier." Cass stirred her oatmeal. "Also, group starts in 20 minutes, and if you sit alone too long, your brain will tell you to run. Brains early in recovery are terrible travel agents." Abigail had no answer for that. She was thinking about the torn page folded under the leg of her table in her room, where she had tucked it before breakfast because leaving it visible felt too intimate. She was thinking of the line. She was thinking of the word depths. She was thinking that if God had a mailing address for the depths, hers would have been listed there for years. Group took place in a room with beige carpet, a circle of chairs, a box of tissues, and a large window facing a courtyard where 2 rabbits left tracks in the snow. The counselor, a lean black man named Marcus Wells, had a voice so calm that Abigail distrusted it on principle. He had been in recovery for 18 years, a fact he mentioned only when new patients tried to convince him he did not understand. He wore boots, jeans, and a flannel shirt under a cardigan that made him look like a mountain professor. A small wooden cross hung on the wall behind him, not centered, as if the room had inherited it from the old retreat house and never decided whether to remove it. "Today we're talking about the difference between guilt and shame," Marcus said. Abigail leaned back and crossed her arms. "Guilt says I did something wrong," Marcus continued. "Shame says I am wrong. Guilt can lead to repair. Shame usually leads to hiding. Most of us have confused them. Most of us have called shame honesty because it sounds harsh enough to be true." A man named Roy snorted. "Sometimes harsh is true. Sometimes," Marcus said. "But not always. If a voice tells you you have caused harm and need to make amends, pay attention. If a voice tells you you are beyond mercy and everyone would be better off if you disappeared, that voice is not from God, and it is not your friend." Abigail looked at the cross before she could stop herself. God. People at Mercy Ridge used the word in different ways. Higher power. Lord. Jesus. Universe. The thing that kept me alive when I was too drunk to know better. Abigail had grown up with Jesus in the ordinary furniture of life. Church potlucks, vacation Bible school, her mother humming hymns while peeling potatoes, her father reading the Christmas story in a voice too stiff for the beauty of it. She had believed as a child with the ease children bring to light. Jesus loved her, this she knew. Then life had become more complicated than the song. Her addiction had not begun with rebellion. That made Abigail angrier than if it had. She had not woken one morning and decided to ruin Christmases, steal rings, miss work, break promises, and make her niece afraid to leave her crayons in the guest room. It began with a prescription after a climbing fall near Red Rock Canyon. A small bottle, hydrocodone, take as needed. She had needed, then needed more, then needed the warmth behind the need. Before the fall she had been a dental assistant, careful with instruments, cheerful with children, proud of paying rent on time. After the fall, she was a woman who learned which urgent care clinics asked fewer questions, which friends had leftover pills after surgery, which stories sounded believable to pharmacists, which lies slid most easily into the ears of people who loved her. Her mother got sick 2 years into Abigail's unraveling. Pancreatic cancer. Fast, cruel, efficient. Abigail told herself she used to function through grief, to sleep, to keep showing up. But she did not show up. Not really. She arrived late to appointments and left early. She forgot prescriptions. She cried in bathrooms and came out with pupils too small. At the end, her mother held her hand and said, "Abby, come back to us." Abigail had promised. Her mother died before she could break that promise in front of her, which felt like mercy and punishment at once. In group, people talked. Roy spoke of stealing from his son. Cass spoke of lying to her wife. A young man named Tyler said shame made him feel like a house with every window painted black. Abigail listened with her arms crossed until Marcus looked at her. "Abigail, you don't have to share. But you're welcome to. I pass." Okay. That was it. No pressure. No disappointed stare. The permission made something inside her ache. After group, she returned to her room and closed the door. The page was still there, folded under the table leg. She took it out and flattened it on the bed. The torn edge had part of the psalm number missing, but the lines were clear enough. "Out of the depths have I cried unto thee, O Lord. Lord, hear my voice. If thou, Lord, shouldest mark iniquities, O Lord, who shall stand? But there is forgiveness with thee." Abigail read the last line and laughed once, not because it was funny. "There is forgiveness with thee," she said aloud to the empty room. Great. Convenient. She expected anger. She expected lightning, maybe. She expected nothing, and nothing came in the way she could measure. The radiator clicked. A cart rolled in the hallway. Someone coughed. A crow landed on the sill outside, black against the snow, and turned one bright eye toward her before lifting away. Abigail folded the page carefully, then slipped it beneath the pillow again. She told herself she did it because the drawer smelled like disinfectant and the page might get damp near the sink. She did not admit, even to herself, that she wanted it near her while she slept. By the end of the first week, she could eat toast without gagging. By the 9th day, she could walk the loop around the courtyard without stopping. By the 10th, she attended morning reflection in the chapel because the snow outside was too cold for walking and because Cass said, "You can sit in the back and judge us." That counts as participation. The chapel was small, with wooden pews and windows that turned morning light soft. It smelled faintly of wax and pine cleaner. The old bell rope hung in a corner, frayed but still dignified. At the front stood a simple cross, unadorned except for a strip of purple cloth someone had draped over it for Advent. A volunteer chaplain named Reverend Paul Whitcomb led the reflection 3 mornings a week. He was a retired pastor with a white beard, a limp from an old ski injury, and a habit of carrying cough drops in every pocket. He never preached longer than 10 minutes, which Abigail appreciated even while refusing to appreciate anything. That morning he read from the Psalms, not the one beneath her pillow, but another. "The Lord is near to the brokenhearted," he said, "and saves the crushed in spirit." Abigail's breath caught so slightly no one noticed. Reverend Paul closed the Bible. Some of us have been told God is mostly near to the impressive. Near to the clean record, the steady family, the person who never missed a chance to do the right thing. But the psalmist says broken-hearted. Crushed. That means there are places where your life may feel most abandoned that are, in fact, not empty of him. Abigail stared at the purple cloth on the cross. She did not want to be moved. Being moved was dangerous. It made a person porous. It let hope in, and hope was more terrifying than despair because despair asked nothing but collapse. Hope asked you to stand. After the reflection, the group sang Amazing Grace because a woman named Paula requested it for her birthday. Abigail had not sung since her mother's funeral. She kept her mouth closed through the first verse, but when the words reached "that saved a wretch like me," She felt a bitter recognition and almost got up to leave. Then Cass beside her sang louder, not beautifully, but honestly, and Reverend Paul's thin tenor wavered, and Brenda, who had slipped in at the back, sang with her eyes closed. The room filled with voices not polished enough to impress anyone but sincere enough to make Abigail's defenses feel tired. She did not sing, but she stayed. The first call with Hannah happened on day 12. Abigail sat in Marcus's office with the center phone between them. She could smell coffee, old books, and the peppermint oil Marcus dabbed on his wrist because, he said, early recovery smelled like many things and not all of them were encouraging. His office had a shelf of recovery books, a photo of his wife and teenage sons, and a print of the Garden of the Gods under snow. A small plaque on his desk read, "Tell the truth. Start there." "I don't need supervision for a phone call," Abigail said. Marcus leaned back. "You requested the call as part of family contact. Early family calls happen with staff present. Same rule for everyone. You think I'm going to manipulate her? I think you're scared." Abigail looked away. "That doesn't make you bad," Marcus said. "It makes you human with a history. We're here to help the conversation not become another injury." Abigail hated how reasonable he was. Marcus dialed. Hannah answered on the second ring. "Hello." Abigail's throat tightened. Her sister's voice carried home inside it. Coffee brewing before dawn. Lily singing in the bathtub. Owen stacking firewood. The porch swing creaking in summer. Abigail had not realized how much she missed it until the sound of Hannah made missing physical. "It's me," Abigail said. A pause. "Hi, Abby." "No, honey. No, sweetheart. No anger either. Just carefulness." "Hi." Marcus nodded slightly, encouraging. Abigail picked at a hangnail. "I'm alive. I'm glad. You sound surprised. You sound defensive." Abigail's head snapped up. Marcus lifted one hand as if to say, "Breathe." Hannah exhaled. "I don't want to fight." "Me neither." Another pause. "How is it?" Hannah asked. "Awful." "Okay. I mean, not all awful. They have oatmeal that tastes like wet cardboard and a nurse who thinks surviving morning is an accomplishment." "That sounds like exactly the kind of nurse you need." Abigail almost smiled. Then silence came again, larger this time. Hannah said, "Lily asks about you." Abigail closed her eyes. Her niece's name was a bruise. "What do you tell her?" "That you're getting help." "Does she believe you?" "She's 6. She mostly asks if you still like purple." Abigail pressed her fingers to her mouth. Marcus watched her with quiet attention. "Tell her yes," Abigail said. "I still like purple. I will." The conversation might have ended there, small and safe, but Abigail's shame had never tolerated tenderness for long. It rushed in with armor. "So is this where you tell me what I have to do to earn back being a person?" Hannah went quiet. Marcus closed his eyes briefly. When Hannah spoke, her voice was steady. "No, you are already a person. I'm going to tell you what I need in order to keep my family safe and be honest with you. There it is." "Abby." "What?" "I knew there'd be conditions." "Yes," Hannah said. "There are." The plainness of it stung more than accusation. Hannah continued, "If you complete the program, I will help you move into a sober living house or whatever aftercare Mercy Ridge recommends. I will not give you cash. I will not let you stay at our house right away. Visits with Lily will be short and supervised until you have stable sobriety and your counselor agrees. You cannot come by unannounced. You cannot call in the middle of the night unless it's through a sponsor, counselor, or emergency service. I will help with groceries or appointments when I can, but I will not lie to Owen or cover for you. I love you. I want you alive. But I cannot go back to the way things were." Abigail's face burned. Each condition was reasonable. That made them unbearable. If Hannah had been cruel, Abigail could have hated her cleanly. Instead, her sister had built a fence around love and called it safety. "You rehearsed that too?" Abigail asked. "Yes, of course. Because when I don't rehearse, I cry, and then you either comfort me so you don't have to hear me, or you get angry so I stop talking. The accuracy landed like a slap. Abigail stood up. The phone cord pulled taut. I can't do this. Marcus rose slowly. Sit down, Abigail. No, into the receiver, she said. Good to know I'm a biohazard. Abby, that is not what I said. It's what you meant. It is not. Hannah's voice finally cracked. I mean, I cannot let my daughter find you unconscious again. I mean, I cannot watch you steal from us and then apologize in a way that makes me feel guilty for being hurt. I mean, I want my sister back, and I do not know how to reach her without losing myself. Abigail's eyes filled, which made her angrier. Maybe your sister's gone. Hannah whispered. I don't believe that. Abigail slammed the phone into the cradle. For a moment, Marcus said nothing. Abigail stood shaking. Not from withdrawal this time, but from humiliation, grief, and the old electric urge to flee. Don't analyze me. I won't. Don't tell me she's right. She loves you. That's worse. Marcus nodded. Often. Abigail laughed without humor. You people are impossible. We are persistent. I'm done. With the call. With all of it. No, you're not. You don't know me. Marcus's voice remained calm, but something firm entered it. I know the look of someone standing at the edge of a familiar cliff. I know you want to turn a painful conversation into proof that recovery is pointless. I know if you run, shame will tell you you had no choice. And I know that 10 minutes from now, you will still be a woman who made it 12 days and has a sister on the other end of the line who did not hang up first. Abigail stared at him. He pointed gently to the chair. Sit down. Be angry in a chair. Running angry is how people die. The bluntness shocked her enough to obey. She sat. For the rest of the hour, she said almost nothing. Marcus did not force her. He gave her water and told her to name 5 things she could see. She named the desk, the clock, the ugly carpet, the mountain print, and the plaque. Tell the truth. Start there. She wanted to throw it at him. That night she lay in bed with the psalm page under her pillow and replayed Hannah's conditions until each became evidence in the trial against herself. Not allowed at the house. Supervised visits. No cash. No unannounced arrivals. Stable sobriety. Aftercare. Boundaries. Boundaries sounded like love had been given a locked door. From the hallway came the muted sounds of Mercy Ridge at night. Footsteps of night staff, distant coughing, a toilet flushing, someone whispering the Serenity Prayer in a voice barely held together. Snow brushed the window. The mountains were invisible again. Abigail pulled the page from beneath her pillow. Out of the depths have I cried unto thee, O Lord. Lord, hear my voice. She read the lines in the dark by the thin light from the hall. Her lips moved once, accidentally, over the words, Lord, hear my voice. The sentence frightened her. It was too close to prayer. She folded the page quickly and shoved it back under the pillow. The next days did not bring any revelation grand enough to make a good testimony. Abigail did not wake suddenly free of cravings. She did not forgive herself. She did not stop resenting Hannah's conditions. But she attended group. She ate meals. She slept badly but slept. She walked the courtyard with Cass, who told stories from her drinking years with the dry humor of someone describing a natural disaster she had caused by hand. I once hid vodka in a shampoo bottle, Cass said as they circled a frozen planter. Thought I was a genius. My wife washed her hair with it before church. Abigail winced. Oh no. Oh yes. She smelled like a bar fight with lavender undertones. Abigail laughed. A real laugh that fogged in the cold air. Cass glanced at her. There she is. Don't make it weird. Everything here is weird. They passed the chapel. Someone inside was playing piano, haltingly. The melody was It Is Well With My Soul, but the pianist kept missing a chord and starting again. Abigail recognized the hymn from her mother's funeral. She stopped walking. Cass stopped too. You okay? My mom loved that song. Do you want to go in? No. Do you want to stand here pretending you don't want to go in? Abigail gave her a look. Cass raised both hands. Standing it is. They stood outside the chapel while the unknown pianist struggled through the hymn. When the melody finally found its way into the line, when sorrows like sea billows roll, Abigail felt her throat close. Her mother had sung that line in a hospital room with an four in her arm and winter light on her face. Abigail had been high that afternoon, not enough for anyone to know, enough to make the edges of grief bearable. She had watched her mother sing and thought, "Stop being brave. I need you to be angry with me. I need something I understand." But Beth Turner had not been angry. Sad, yes. Frightened, yes. But she had looked at Abigail as if love were still larger than the disappointment inside it. The pianist finished. Silence returned. Abigail wiped her eyes with the sleeve of her jacket. Cass looked toward the mountains. "My dad used to say that hymn was written by someone who knew life could break you and still didn't want bitterness to get the last word. Your dad sounds like a church bulletin. He was a mailman. But spiritually, yes." Abigail laughed through tears, and Cass, wisely, did not comment. On day 17, Reverend Paul asked if Abigail would help stack chairs after reflection. She said yes because saying no seemed harder. They worked in silence at first, lifting metal chairs and sliding them onto a rack near the wall. Reverend Paul moved slowly because of his limp. Abigail noticed and took the heavier side without making a show of it. "Thank you," he said. "I'm not doing it for extra Jesus points." He chuckled. "Good. The bookkeeping on those is terrible." She looked at him, suspicious, then realized he was teasing. He lifted another chair. "Brenda tells me you found a psalm." "Brenda talks too much." "Brenda talks exactly enough." Abigail dragged the chair rack into place. "I didn't find it. It found me, apparently." "Very dramatic." "Which psalm?" 130, I think. The torn part cuts off the number. Reverend Paul's face softened. "Out of the depths. You know it? I've prayed it in emergency rooms, jail visiting rooms, funeral homes, and once in a grocery store parking lot with a man who had just realized he could not go home drunk again." Abigail leaned against the wall. "Did it work?" "What do you mean? Did God fix them?" Reverend Paul considered. "Not like a snapped finger. Not like magic. Sometimes the prayer gave them the first honest sentence after years of pretending. That can be the beginning of a miracle, though it often looks like paperwork, apologies, meetings, and getting out of bed." Abigail snorted. "That's a disappointing miracle. Most durable ones are." She looked at the cross. "I don't know how to pray anymore." "Good." She turned. "Good. People who think they know exactly how to pray often spend a long time performing. If all you have is one sentence, offer one sentence." "I don't have one." "You might. It may be on that torn page." Abigail said nothing. Reverend Paul picked a cough drop from his pocket and offered her one. She took it. Honey lemon. Her mother used to buy the same kind. He unwrapped his slowly. "Abigail, Jesus is not shocked by the depths. That is one reason I have trusted him with my own. The Gospels are full of him stepping toward people everyone else had decided to step away from." "There it is," she said. "The sermon." He smiled. "That was only a sentence. I'm retired. I ration myself." She almost smiled back. That evening, Abigail wrote Hannah a letter she did not send. Marcus had suggested writing without deciding whether the words would leave the building. Abigail resisted for an hour, then took a pencil from the art room and sat near the window as dusk turned the snow blue. "Hannah, I am angry at your conditions because they prove I broke things that cannot be fixed by saying sorry. I want to tell you you're being unfair because unfair feels better than ashamed. But I remember Lily's face when Owen found me. I remember you crying in the laundry room and I pretended I didn't hear. I remember taking Grandma's ring and telling myself I would get it back. I don't know how to hold all that and still breathe." She stopped. Her hand shook. She pressed the pencil point too hard and broke it. She did not finish the letter that night, but she folded it and placed it under the psalm page beneath her pillow. Mercy Ridge had Christmas decorations in the way institutions do, Practical, mismatched, both cheerful and sad. A wreath hung on the dining hall door. A plastic nativity scene sat on the front desk next to a basket of hand sanitizer. Someone had taped paper snowflakes to the group room windows. In the chapel, a wooden manger waited empty until Christmas Eve, a tradition from the old retreat house. Abigail watched the staff move through Advent with gentle restraint. No one demanded joy. No one pretended people in recovery did not often dread holidays. Marcus called December a month with too many ghosts and too much sugar. On day 20, Abigail was assigned kitchen duty after lunch. She washed industrial pans beside a man named Glenn who had owned a roofing company before alcohol took his balance, his business, and his second marriage in roughly that order. Glenn listened to country radio while he worked. A song came on about going home for Christmas, and he muttered, "Lies set to fiddle." Abigail laughed. Glenn handed her a pan. "You got people? A sister. That good or bad?" "Yes." He nodded. "Families like weather in Colorado. Give it 10 minutes. It'll change and still somehow be your problem." "Poetic. I was drunk for 30 years. Plenty of time to think." He scrubbed a pot. "My son says I can come for dinner if I make it 90 days and don't bring the speech." "What speech?" "The one where I explain why everything happened to me instead of admitting what I did." Abigail looked at him. Glenn shrugged. "He's not wrong." In the suds, Abigail saw Hannah's face. She thought about excuses, injury, grief, pain, doctors, loneliness, depression. All true. None enough to erase harm. She thought about Jesus telling the truth without using it like a hammer. She thought maybe truth could be less like a sentence and more like surgery. Painful because it was meant to remove what was killing you. The next family meeting was scheduled for the following Monday in person. Hannah would come to Mercy Ridge. Abigail learned this from Marcus after lunch and immediately felt the old map of escape unfold in her mind. "You don't have to look thrilled," Marcus said. "I'm not. I noticed. I thought visitors were later. Family sessions can happen when clinically useful. Your sister is willing. Are you?" Abigail looked out his office window. The sky had cleared, and the mountains stood sharp and blue-white, their beauty almost aggressive. Define willing. Present. Honest. Not performing indifference so you don't have to risk wanting connection. "You always talk like that?" "Only when plain speech fails." Abigail rubbed her palms on her jeans. "What if she comes and I can't stand it?" "Then you say, 'I need a minute,' and you take a minute. You don't run." "What if she says something that makes me want to?" "She probably will." Great counseling. Recovery is not avoiding every painful sentence. It's learning you can survive pain without obeying it. That line stayed with her against her will. The night before Hannah's visit, Abigail could not sleep. Wind hit the building in gusts that made the window rattle. She took out the psalm page and her unfinished letter. She read the psalm first. "If thou, Lord, shouldest mark iniquities, O Lord, who shall stand? But there is forgiveness with thee." She read it over and over until the old language became less strange. If God kept a ledger without mercy, who could survive? Not Abigail. Not Hannah. Not Glenn. Not Cass. Not any nurse, counselor, pastor, father, sister, saint, or stranger. But there is forgiveness. Not there might be, not for people who explain well enough, not for those whose failures are photogenic and small. There is forgiveness with thee. She whispered, "Lord, hear my voice." The room did not change, but she had said it. Her first prayer in years was not beautiful. It was not complete. It was one borrowed sentence cracked at the edges. "Lord, hear my voice." She waited, embarrassed, as if someone might have overheard. Then she whispered it again. When Hannah arrived the next morning, she brought the smell of cold air and pine soap into the counseling room. She wore jeans, boots, and a gray coat. Her dark blonde hair was cut shorter than Abigail remembered, tucked behind her ears. There were lines near her mouth that had not been there 5 years ago. Abigail realized with a shock that her sister had aged while Abigail was busy falling apart. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Then Hannah said, "Hi, Abby." "Hi." Marcus offered coffee. Hannah accepted. Abigail did not. Her stomach had become a fist. They sat in 3 chairs angled toward one another. On the low table between them were tissues and a bowl of hard candies. Abigail chose a butterscotch just to have something to do with her hands. Marcus began gently. "The purpose today is not to solve every family wound. It's to practice honesty without harm. Hannah, you shared boundaries on the phone. Abigail, you have had time to respond. Maybe we start there." Abigail stared at the candy wrapper. "I hated them." Hannah nodded. "I know. I still hate them. I know that too. But..." Abigail looked up. Hannah's eyes were tired and afraid. "Not cold. Afraid. I understand why they're there." Hannah's face changed slightly. Abigail swallowed. "I don't like that. I understand. It makes it harder to be mad." Hannah let out a breath that might have been a laugh if they had been different people. "I'm not trying to punish you. I know. Part of me wants to," Hannah admitted, surprising them both. She looked at Marcus, then back at Abigail. "I don't mean I want you suffering. I mean there is a part of me that wants you to finally feel what we felt. The panic, the embarrassment, the way every phone call made my stomach drop. Then I feel guilty because you're sick, and then I feel angry because your sickness still hurt us, and then I feel like a terrible Christian because I'm supposed to forgive." Abigail had expected conditions, maybe tears, maybe controlled disappointment. She had not expected Hannah to confess. Marcus said quietly, "Forgiveness does not mean pretending you were not hurt." Hannah nodded, but her eyes stayed on Abigail. "I am trying. I need you to know that. I pray for you, and sometimes the prayer is just, 'Lord, I can't carry her. Please carry her because I can't.'" Abigail's throat tightened. Hannah continued, "Lily drew you a picture. I didn't know whether to bring it." "You did." Hannah opened her purse and removed a folded piece of paper. "I need to say something first. She loves you." But she was scared. After that day, Abigail closed her eyes. "I know. She asked if you were dead." The room tilted. Abigail gripped the arms of the chair. "I told her no," Hannah said. Her voice trembled. "I told her you were very sick and we were getting help. I did not tell her details. But she remembers Owen carrying you. She remembers me crying. She remembers you promised to take her to the zoo and didn't come." Abigail bent forward, pressing her hands over her face. "Stop." Marcus leaned in. "Breathe." "I can't." "You can." Feet on the floor. Abigail put her feet flat on the carpet. In, out, in, out. Pain rose, demanding action. Run. Rage. Deny. Collapse. But Marcus's voice was steady. Hannah was crying silently, and somewhere beneath the panic was the psalm like a floor under deep water. "Lord, hear my voice." Abigail lowered her hands. "I'm sorry," she said. Hannah cried harder. Abigail shook her head. "No, listen. I say that all the time and then I make excuses. I don't want to do that. I am sorry Lily was scared. I am sorry I didn't come to the zoo. I am sorry I made your house unsafe. I am sorry about Grandma's ring. I told myself I would get it back. But I didn't. I am sorry Mom died with me still lying. I don't know how to fix any of that." Hannah covered her mouth. Marcus's eyes glistened, but he stayed silent. Abigail continued, each word hard one. "I want to tell you I'll never hurt you again. I want to make a big promise so you'll look less afraid. But I think I've used promises like drugs too. So I won't. I can say I'm here today. I'm not leaving today. I'm willing to do aftercare. I hate it, but I'm willing. I want to write Lily a letter if you think it won't hurt her." Hannah wiped her eyes. "I think she would like that. Only if you read it first." "Okay." Hannah handed her the drawing. Abigail opened it carefully. Lily had drawn 3 stick figures under a purple rainbow. One was labeled Mom. One was labeled me. One was labeled Aunt Abby. Aunt Abby had very long hair and enormous hands. At the bottom, in 6-year-old letters, Lily had written, "Get well soon." Abigail cried then, not quietly, not prettily. She cried with the drawing pressed to her chest. Hannah moved as if to comfort her, stopped, then looked at Marcus. Marcus nodded slightly. Hannah crossed the space and knelt in front of Abigail. "Can I hug you?" Hannah whispered. Abigail nodded. The hug was careful at first, then fierce. Abigail smelled her sister's shampoo and wool coat and the faint scent of home. She wanted to crawl backward through years and become someone easier to love. Instead, she held on and sobbed. When the session ended, nothing was solved. The boundaries remained. Hannah would not take Abigail home. Abigail would write Lily with Hannah reading first. Mercy Ridge would coordinate aftercare. Trust would be measured in months and years, not tears in a room. But when Hannah left, she turned at the door. "Abby? Yeah, I'm proud of you for today." Abigail nodded, unable to speak. That evening, she placed Lily's drawing under the psalm page beneath her pillow. The pillow had become a small altar of torn things. For 3 days after the family meeting, Abigail felt lighter. This frightened her. Lightness, in her experience, often came before sabotage. She had once celebrated a week sober by calling Nate Ramsey, a man whose charm was mostly teeth and timing, because he said he missed her, and she wanted to be missed more than she wanted to be safe. Nate had been her boyfriend for almost 2 years, though boyfriend was too clean a word for what they had become. They had loved each other in the way drowning people love driftwood, each using the other to stay afloat while pulling both under. Mercy Ridge had her phone locked away, but Nate's number lived in her memory, carved there by habit. So did the number of a dealer in Pueblo, an old coworker who might still have pills, and a cab company that would come to the far side of the center if she could get to a gas station. Memory was a dangerous storage unit. Recovery did not empty it in a day. On day 24, snow fell all afternoon and turned the courtyard into a white bowl. The sky darkened early. The center felt restless. Holidays were near. Cravings moved through the hallways like weather. Roy snapped at Glenn over a chair. Paula cried because her daughter had not called. Cass admitted she wanted a drink badly enough to taste it. At dinner, Abigail could not swallow meatloaf. She felt every rule pressing against her skin. No phone. No leaving. No cash. No secrets. No Nate. No old life. No easy comfort. Her body, though healing, remembered relief with savage clarity. One pill and the edges would soften. One call and someone would say, "Baby, I got you," even if what they had was poison. After dinner, Brenda stopped her near the medication window. "You look stormy." "I'm fine." "Stormy and lying." Abigail glared. "Do they train you to be irritating?" "Yearly recertification." Brenda handed her the small cup of prescribed medication. "Drink water." Abigail swallowed the pills and drank. Brenda leaned on the counter. "Cravings?" "No. Fine." "Yes." "How strong?" Abigail looked away. "Strong. Tell Marcus." "I don't want another group lecture." "Then tell Cass." "Tell me." "Tell the wall. Just don't hold it alone and act surprised when it grows teeth." Abigail took the cup to the trash. "I said I'm handling it." Brenda's face softened, which made Abigail angrier. "Honey, handling it alone is where most of us got hurt." Abigail walked away. In the hallway, Christmas lights blinked around the bulletin board. Someone had posted handwritten prayers on paper stars. "Keep my son safe. Help me forgive myself. Let this be the year I stay. God, I don't know if you are real, but I am tired." Abigail read that last one twice. In her room, she paced. The psalm page lay under the pillow. Lily's drawing lay with it. Hannah's conditions rang in her ears. She imagined months of sober living, meetings, drug tests, apologies, low-wage work, no shortcuts, everyone watching for failure. She imagined Lily growing up knowing Aunt Abby as a cautionary tale. She imagined relapsing later after everyone had hoped harder. making the disappointment worse. Better to fail early, shame whispered. Better to confirm what they fear before they trust you again. Better to run before rejection can catch its breath. The thought arrived fully dressed. Leave tonight. Not tomorrow. Not after talking. Tonight. When the snow hid tracks and the staff changed shifts and the side door near the laundry room sometimes failed to latch if the wind caught it wrong. Abigail knew this because Glenn had complained about the draft. The road down to the main street was less than a mile. There was a gas station with a payphone. Did payphones still work? She had seen one outside near the propane cage. Nate would answer. Or someone would. Someone always did when there was money or desperation, and desperation had its own currency. She told herself she only needed air. She put on her coat. She took the psalm page from beneath the pillow, looked at it, and almost left it behind. Then, for reasons she did not examine, she folded it and put it in her pocket. Lily's drawing she left. She could not bear to carry it into betrayal. The hallway was quiet. Evening group had ended. The television room murmured with a Christmas movie. Staff voices came from the nurse station. Abigail walked toward the laundry room with a towel in her hand as camouflage, her heart beating so hard it seemed audible. She passed the bulletin board. God, I don't know if you are real, but I am tired. Same, she whispered. The laundry room smelled of detergent and hot metal. 2 dryers tumbled. The side door sat beyond a rack of cleaning supplies. A red sign read, "Alarm will sound." But Glenn had said the alarm had been disconnected years ago and replaced by a camera after raccoons kept setting it off. Abigail did not know if that was true. Her hand hovered over the push bar. She thought of Brenda. Tell the wall. Just don't hold it alone. She pushed. The door opened into wind. For a second she expected sirens. None came. Snow rushed into her face, sharp and fine. The cold stole her breath. She stepped outside and let the door close behind her. The world beyond Mercy Ridge was blue, black, and white. The parking lot lights made halos in the snow. The pines bent and shivered. Far off, the city glowed under cloud. Colorado Springs spread like embers at the foot of the mountains. Abigail pulled her coat tight and started down the service drive. At first, the running felt like power. Each step away from the center seemed to prove she could still choose. The snow squeaked under her shoes. Her breath burned. The wind shoved at her shoulders. She did not look back. By the time she reached the main road, power had become cold. Her jeans were wet at the cuffs. Her ears ached. The sidewalk disappeared under snow, so she walked near the shoulder, flinching when cars passed and through slush. A pickup slowed once, then continued. She told herself she was almost at the gas station. The gas station sat at the corner with fluorescent lights bright enough to make the falling snow look artificial. A sign advertised diesel, coffee, bait, and lottery tickets. The payphone was still there, half-sheltered beside an ice machine, ancient and scratched with initials. Abigail laughed when she saw it, a breathless, bitter laugh. Of course it still existed. The devil loved infrastructure. Inside, the clerk, a young man with acne and a Broncos beanie, looked up from his phone. You okay? Fine. He looked at her soaked shoes, shaking hands, and center-issued coat with Mercy Ridge embroidered faintly on the sleeve. You from the place up the road? No. Okay. He did not believe her, but he did not push. Coffee's fresh. She had no money. She walked to the back aisle and stood among chips, jerky, energy drinks, and cheap gloves. Her body screamed for relief. Not food. Not warmth. Relief. The craving had a voice now, intimate and reasonable. You can go back later. You can start over tomorrow. You deserve one quiet hour. They already think you'll fail. Stop making them wait. She went back outside to the payphone. Her fingers were clumsy in the cold. She picked up the receiver. There was a dial tone. Nate's number came easily. Too easily. She dialed 6 digits, then stopped before the last. Through the glass, she saw the clerk watching her. He looked away quickly when she noticed. Snow gathered on her hair. The receiver smelled like metal and old cigarettes. Her thumb hovered over the last number. A truck pulled into the lot, tires crunching. A man in a heavy canvas coat climbed out, filled his tank, and began humming as he worked. The tune reached her through wind and traffic. At first she could not place it. Then the words rose in memory. I once was lost, but now I'm found. Amazing grace. Abigail closed her eyes. No, she said. No, no, no. She pressed the last number. The phone rang. Once. Twice. A click. Nate's voice, groggy and familiar. Yeah. Abigail could not breathe. Hello, Nate said. Who is this? She had imagined his voice would feel like comfort. It felt like a basement door opening. Abby? His tone changed, honey over rust. That you? Her name in his mouth almost undid her. Where are you, baby? He asked. I heard you got locked up in that Jesus rehab. Not locked, she whispered. He laughed softly. Sure. You need me? Need. The words slid under her skin. Behind her, the man at the pump hummed the hymn badly but steadily. A car passed on the road. Snow blew sideways. The mountains were invisible, but Mercy Ridge was up the hill, lit and warm, full of people who would be angry, worried, unsurprised, and still perhaps willing to open the door. Nate said, I can come get you. 15 minutes. I got something that'll take the edge off. No drama. Just you and me. The edge. Abigail looked at her hand gripping the receiver. Her knuckles were white. She wanted the edge gone. She wanted guilt, shame, fear, memory, cold, Hannah's conditions, Lily's drawing, her mother's song, Brenda's eyes, Marcus's plaque, and the torn psalm all softened into distance. She wanted to stop being a person who had to choose. In her pocket, the psalm page crackled against her fingers. She pulled it out awkwardly, the receiver pressed to her ear. Snow wet the paper. The ink blurred at the torn edge, but the underlined line remained. Out of the depths have I cried unto thee, O Lord. Nate was talking. Abby? You there? Come on, don't do this weird silent thing. Tell me where you are. Lord, hear my voice. The words came not as thunder, not as a feeling, not even as certainty. They came as a sentence she could stand on for half a second. Abigail whispered, Lord, hear my voice. Nate paused. What? She said it again, louder, to someone beyond the payphone, beyond the gas station, beyond the black sky. Lord, hear my voice. Abby, are you high? No, she said, and began to cry because it was true. No, I'm not. Then tell me where you are. She looked toward the road leading uphill. It seemed impossibly long. Snow covered the shoulder. Her body hurt. Her pride screamed. Her shame said returning would be worse than disappearing. But another voice, small and stubborn, said doorway. Just get to the doorway of help. I'm going back, she said. Nate's voice hardened. Seriously, I'm going back. They got you brainwashed. Maybe. She laughed through tears. Maybe my brain needed washing. Abby, don't hang up. Goodbye, Nate. She hung up before he could say her name again. For a moment, she leaned against the payphone and sobbed so hard the clerk came outside without a coat. Ma'am? He said, shivering. Do you need me to call someone? Abigail wiped her face with her sleeve. Mercy Ridge. Yeah, I need to go back. Relief crossed his face. I can call them. No, pride rose reflexively, then weakened. Yes, please. He nodded and hurried inside. While he called, the man from the truck approached. He was older, with a weathered face and a gray mustache, carrying a large coffee. You're freezing, he said. I'm okay. No, you're not. He held out the coffee. It's black. I haven't touched it. Take it just to hold. I don't have money. Didn't ask. She took the cup. Heat seeped into her fingers. He glanced at the wet paper in her hand. Psalm? Abigail looked at him warily. Yes. My wife used to keep one in her coat pocket, he said. Psalm 121. I will lift up mine eyes unto the hills. We live in the right state for that one. Abigail looked toward the invisible mountains. She passed last winter, he said, not heavily, just truthfully. I still hum when I pump gas because she said silence gave sorrow too much room. You were humming Amazing Grace. Badly. Yes. He smiled. But sincerely. The clerk came out. They're sending someone. Said stay inside. Abigail looked up the hill. I should walk. The older man shook his head. You should not make grand gestures in wet shoes. Sit by the window. Go back alive. That's plenty dramatic. The clerk led her inside. He gave her a stool near the counter and placed a paper towel under her dripping shoes. The older man bought another coffee and a pair of cheap gloves, which he set beside her without ceremony. What's your name? Abigail asked. Earl. Why are you helping me? Earl shrugged. Because once, years ago, my brother walked into a diner instead of a ditch, and somebody gave him coffee until I could get there. He got 31 years sober before cancer took him. I figure I owe the world a few cups. Abigail held the coffee and cried quietly. Within 20 minutes, a Mercy Ridge van pulled into the lot. Marcus got out wearing a coat over pajama pants and boots unlaced in his hurry. Brenda was in the passenger seat. Abigail saw them and felt shame hit so hard she almost turned away. Marcus entered first. He took in the scene. Abigail wet and shaking, Earl by the door, the clerk trying not to stare, the psalm page spread on the counter to dry. You hurt? Marcus asked. Abigail shook her head. Use? No. Call someone? She closed her eyes. Nate. Marcus nodded slowly. Did he come? No. Why not? I hung up. Brenda exhaled. And Abigail realized the nurse had been holding her breath. I'm sorry, Abigail said. The words rushed out. I left. I lied by leaving. I was going to use. I called him. I'm sorry. I don't have an excuse. I just wanted to stop feeling everything. And I didn't tell anyone. And I should have. I'm sorry. Marcus's face softened but stayed serious. Thank you for telling the truth. Am I kicked out? No. The answer almost knocked her off the stool. But there will be consequences, he said. Safety review. Restricted movement. We'll call Hannah with you. Your treatment plan changes. We take this seriously. I know. Brenda stepped forward and wrapped a blanket around Abigail's shoulders. Also, you're getting checked for frostbite because apparently Colorado in December did not consult your relapse plan. Abigail laughed and cried at the same time. Earl patted the doorframe. I'll leave you to your people. Abigail looked at him. Thank you. He nodded. Lift up your eyes when the storm clears. In the van, Brenda turned the heat high. Marcus drove slowly through the snow. Abigail sat in the back with the blanket, the gloves, and the damp psalm page in her lap. No one lectured her. That was almost worse. The silence had room for truth. Halfway up the hill, she whispered, I'm tired of being the person who runs. Marcus met her eyes in the rearview mirror. Then tonight matters. I almost used. Yes. I called him. Yes. I left. Yes. So why does it matter? Because you turned around. Abigail looked down at the page. Brenda said softly, some of us begin with not dying. Some of us begin with not using. Some of us begin with knocking on the door we ran from. When Mercy Ridge came into view, its windows glowed yellow against the snow. The side door through which Abigail had escaped looked small and foolish now. Marcus parked near the front entrance instead. He did not take her through the side. He walked her to the main doorway, where a staff member waited with a key. Abigail stopped before the threshold. The building smelled of coffee, floor cleaner, and heat. From the television room came canned laughter. Somewhere, a dryer buzzed. Ordinary sounds. Unmiraculous sounds. The sounds of a place still available to her. I don't deserve to come back, she whispered. Marcus stood beside her in the cold. That may be true if this were about deserving. It isn't. What is it about? Grace. And work. Both. She stepped inside. The next morning, Abigail sat in group with a blanket around her shoulders and told the truth. Her face burned. Her hands shook. She described the craving, the side door, the payphone, Nate's voice, the psalm, the coffee, the van. She did not make herself heroic. She did not make herself uniquely doomed. She said, I chose to leave and then I chose to come back. I need help before the leaving part next time. Cass cried openly. Glenn looked at the floor. Roy muttered, damn, and then apologized to Reverend Paul, who was not in the room. Marcus asked, what did you learn? Abigail thought carefully. That cravings lie in my own voice. That shame tries to get me alone. That I can pray one sentence and still feel awful, but the sentence might keep me alive long enough to do the next right thing. No one clapped. Mercy Ridge did not clap for pain unless the person asked. But the room felt warmer. After group, Marcus and Abigail called Hannah. Abigail expected anger. She deserved it. Hannah answered breathless, as if she had been waiting with the phone in her hand. I'm here, Abigail said. I'm at Mercy Ridge. I left last night and I came back. I didn't use. I called Nate, but I hung up. I'm sorry. I know this scares you. I'm not asking you to make me feel better. Hannah was silent so long Abigail thought the call had dropped. Then her sister sobbed once. Thank you for telling me. I'm sorry. I'm angry. I know. I'm scared. I know. I'm glad you came back. Abigail closed her eyes. Me too. I still need the same boundaries. I know. And maybe more. I know. Abigail took a breath. I'll work with Marcus on whatever comes next. Hannah cried quietly. That sounded like you. What? Not the old you. Not exactly. But you. Honest you. Abigail pressed the psalm page flat on Marcus's desk. I'm trying to meet her. Christmas Eve arrived 4 days later. Abigail had not left again. She had been placed on closer observation, lost courtyard walks without staff, and had to process the relapse call in individual therapy more times than she preferred. She hated the consequences and also found them oddly comforting. Boundaries, she was beginning to understand, were not proof love had ended. Sometimes they were the shape love took when trust had been injured. The chapel filled that evening with patients, staff, and a few approved family members. Snow lay clean outside, and the sky beyond the windows had cleared enough to show stars. The wooden manger at the front now held a small carved infant. Someone had placed battery candles along the aisle for safety, but Reverend Paul lit one real candle near the cross. Abigail sat beside Cass. Hannah had not come. Christmas Eve with Lily mattered, and Abigail had insisted on it during their call. But Hannah had sent a photo through Marcus. Lily in purple pajamas holding a paper snowflake, smiling with one front tooth missing. On the back of the printed photo, Hannah had written, she says the rainbow picture is for your room when you are ready. Reverend Paul read the Christmas story. Abigail heard details she had heard all her life as if they belonged to recovery. No room. A borrowed place. Night shift shepherds. Fear not. A child wrapped and laid where animals fed. God choosing not an impressive entrance, but a vulnerable one. Then they sang Silent Night. Abigail sang. Her voice was rough. It wavered on holy. She cried on heavenly peace. But she sang. Cass reached over and squeezed her hand. Brenda stood at the back with tissues ready like ammunition. Marcus sang quietly beside his wife, who had come with their sons. Glenn hummed because he did not know the words. Roy knew every word and pretended he did not. After the hymn, Reverend Paul invited anyone who wished to offer a short prayer. Abigail's first instinct was to shrink. Public prayer belonged to people with clean lives and confident voices. But then she thought of the gas station, the payphone, the page wet with snow. She thought of the doorway. She stood before fear could negotiate. Every head turned. She did not walk to the front. She stayed by her pew, hands gripping the back of it. Jesus, she said. and the name felt strange and familiar, like opening a childhood door. I don't know how to pray well, but thank you for hearing me when I was outside in the snow. Thank you for people who came to get me. Please help the ones who still want to run tonight. Please help us come back. Amen. That was all. She sat down, shaking. Cass whispered, "That was a prayer." Abigail wiped her eyes. "Shut up." Cass smiled. "A beautiful prayer. Seriously." But Abigail was smiling too. The weeks after Christmas were not easy. The world did not become gentle because Abigail had prayed aloud. Cravings returned, sometimes as whispers, sometimes as weather. She dreamed of pills and woke furious. She snapped at Cass over a missing sweater and later apologized. She wrote Lily a letter, then rewrote it because the first version tried too hard to sound wise. The final letter was simple. "Dear Lily, thank you for the picture. I love the purple rainbow. I am at a place where people are helping me get well. I am sorry I scared you. That was not your fault. I am working hard so that when I see you, I can be safe and honest. I still like purple. I love you. Aunt Abby." Hannah read it, approved it, and mailed it from Woodland Park with a sheet of stickers Lily could use when she wrote back. Abigail began meeting with a sponsor named Denise, a woman with 22 years sober, silver hoop earrings, and no patience for self-pity disguised as insight. Denise visited Mercy Ridge on Thursdays and told Abigail, "We will not build your recovery out of shame. Shame is a terrible contractor. The walls fall down." Abigail said, "Everyone here talks in sayings." Denise replied, "That's because sayings are handles. When your mind is on fire, grab one." They worked on a relapse plan. They wrote Nate's number on a piece of paper and burned it in the ash bucket behind the maintenance shed under staff supervision. This was less dramatic than Abigail expected because the paper took 3 tries to catch fire in the wind. Still, when the last digit blackened, she felt something loosen. She signed releases for Hannah and the aftercare coordinator. She agreed to a women's sober living house in Old Colorado City after discharge. She applied for a part-time position in the kitchen of a retirement community that partnered with Mercy Ridge. She attended meetings. She hated meetings less by the 3rd week. She learned to say, "I'm Abigail, and I'm an addict," without hearing only condemnation in the sentence. She began to understand it as a location on a map. Dangerous terrain, yes, but named terrain could be navigated. The psalm page remained beneath her pillow. The staff offered to laminate it, but Abigail refused. She liked its fragility. She liked that it had survived tearing, folding, sweat, snow, and her pocket. One evening, Reverend Paul found her in the chapel staring at it. "You ever wonder where it came from?" he asked. "All the time. Any theories?" "Brenda." He smiled. "I asked. She says no." "Cass." Cass said if she were going to hide scripture under your pillow, she would choose something more passive-aggressive. Abigail laughed. "Maybe a previous patient left it in the pillowcase," he said. "Maybe laundry folded it in. Maybe someone meant to give it to someone else. Maybe God uses poor housekeeping. Is that official theology? Retired pastor theology." Abigail turned the page over. The back contained the end of another psalm, only fragments visible. "Hope in the Lord, mercy, plenteous redemption." "I wanted a sign for years," she said. "Not really. I said I did. But I think I wanted a sign that would fix me without me having to become honest." Reverend Paul sat in the pew ahead of her. "And now I think the page didn't fix anything. It gave me words. And then I had to use them. That sounds like grace to me." Abigail folded the page. "Grace is work. Grace is gift. Healing is often learning how to live inside the gift." She thought about that for a long time. In January, Hannah came for another family session. This time she brought Owen, a quiet man with kind eyes and a beard Abigail had once teased him for trimming too carefully. Owen had not visited the first time because, as Hannah admitted, he had not been ready to see Abigail without anger. Abigail appreciated the honesty. She was tired of everyone pretending pain was polite. Owen sat stiffly at first. Marcus reviewed the goals. Hannah twisted a tissue in her hands. Abigail spoke first. Owen, I'm sorry for what happened at your house. I'm sorry you had to carry me. I'm sorry Lily saw it. I'm sorry I stole from the drawer in the guest room. I don't remember everything, but I'm not going to use that to avoid responsibility. I hurt your family. Owen looked down. His hands were rough from carpentry, nails clean but scarred. I was furious with you, he said. I know. I still am sometimes. I know. But Lily prayed for you every night after you left. His voice thickened. She said, Dear Jesus, help Aunt Abby not be sleepy sick anymore. I didn't want to pray it with her at first. I was too mad. Then I realized my 6-year-old had more courage than me. Abigail cried silently. Owen cleared his throat. I don't trust you yet. I understand. I want to someday. The words entered Abigail quietly, like morning light through blinds. I want that too, she said. They discussed practical things. Visits after discharge would begin with letters and short video calls facilitated by Hannah. Abigail would not be alone with Lily until much later. She would not ask for money. She would let Hannah say no without punishing her emotionally. Hannah agreed to attend one family support group a month. Owen agreed not to refer to Mercy Ridge as that place in front of Lily. They all laughed a little at that, even Owen. Before leaving, Owen handed Abigail a small envelope. Lily made this. Inside was a sticker of a purple star and a note in careful letters. I like purple too. From Lily. Abigail placed the sticker on the back of the psalm page. On discharge day in February, the sky over Colorado Springs was startlingly clear. Pikes Peak stood white and immense, no longer hidden. Abigail packed her duffel slowly. She had more than she arrived with. Letters, a meeting list, a worn devotional from Ruth in the kitchen, the psalm page, Lily's drawing, a sweater Cass insisted made her look less like a haunted librarian, and a small wooden cross Reverend Paul had carved badly during a grief workshop. Cass stood in the doorway. You're really leaving? To sober living, not Paris. Still, Cass's eyes shone. Save me a seat in the outside world. You're 2 weeks behind me. Then don't relapse before I get there. It would be rude. Abigail hugged her. I'll do my best. Do better than your best. Call people. Yes, sponsor Cass. I'm serious. I know. Brenda checked Abigail's discharge paperwork and slipped a packet of honey lemon cough drops into her bag. For emergencies. Cough emergencies? Prayer emergencies. Same aisle. Abigail laughed and hugged her too. Marcus walked her to the front entrance. The same doors Hannah had left her behind weeks ago opened now to cold sunlight and a Mercy Ridge van waiting to take her to the sober living house. Abigail paused on the threshold as she had that freezing night, but the pause felt different. Marcus handed her a folded copy of her relapse plan. Doorways are going to matter for you, he said. I know. When you want to run, find a doorway of help. Meeting hall, church, sister's boundary, sponsor's phone, emergency room, gas station clerk if you have to. Doorways. She nodded. And Abigail? She looked at him. You are not the woman you were on your worst night. She swallowed. I'm not sure who I am yet. That's honest. Start there. The sober living house stood in old Colorado City, a blue Victorian with peeling trim, a strict house manager named Mrs. Keller, and 6 women in various stages of rebuilding. Abigail shared a room with a nurse in recovery named Trina, who snored softly and labeled her yogurt with intimidating precision. The house had rules. Curfew, chores, meetings, random tests, no guests upstairs, no romantic relationships in early recovery, employment search, rent after the first month if able. Abigail disliked several rules and needed all of them. Her mornings began before sunrise. She made coffee, sat at the kitchen table while the house was quiet, and read the torn psalm. At first she read only the underlined line, then the next, then the whole page. Eventually she copied the lines into a notebook. Out of the depths have I cried unto thee, "O Lord, Lord, hear my voice." After reading, she prayed in plain language because fancy language made her feel like a fraud. "Jesus, help me tell the truth today. Jesus, help me not call Nate. Jesus, help Hannah feel safe. Jesus, help me take the bus to work and not make drama out of being tired. Jesus, help Cass sleep. Jesus, thank you for coffee." Some mornings she felt peace. Some mornings she felt nothing. Some mornings she felt angry and prayed through clenched teeth. Denise told her honest prayer counted even when it wore muddy boots. Abigail got the job at the retirement community kitchen. She chopped vegetables, washed trays, and learned which residents wanted extra gravy. An old man named Mr. Bell always asked for peaches even when peaches were not on the menu. A woman named Dorothy called Abigail Red because of the auburn tint in her hair and told her she had hands meant for careful work. Abigail had forgotten that about herself. Dental assisting had required careful hands. Addiction had made her think her hands were good only for taking, hiding, and shaking. Now they peeled carrots, poured soup, wrote letters, held coffee, turned pages, and once, after a meeting, held another woman's hands while she cried through a craving. Hannah did not become instantly relaxed. Their phone calls remained structured. Some days she sounded warm, some days cautious. Abigail learned not to punish caution. She learned to say, "I understand," and mean it at least halfway. Lily sent drawings. Abigail sent short letters. In March, with Marcus and Denise agreeing, Abigail had her first video call with Lily. Hannah sat beside Lily on the couch. Owen moved in the background and pretended not to listen. Lily held a stuffed fox and stared at the screen. "Hi, Aunt Abby," she said. Abigail's heart nearly broke. "Hi, Lilybug. You look better." Abigail laughed softly. "I feel better. Mom says you live with ladies now." "I do. In a blue house. Do you still like purple?" "I have a purple mug." Lily considered. "That's good." Silence. Abigail wanted to fill it with apologies, promises, explanations. Instead, she remembered what Marcus said. Children need truth in small cups. "I got your star sticker," Abigail said. "I put it somewhere special." "Where?" "On a paper that helps me pray." Lily leaned closer. "What do you pray?" Abigail glanced at Hannah. Hannah's eyes were wet, but she nodded. "I pray, Lord, hear my voice." Lily repeated it softly, testing the words. "Lord, hear my voice." "Yes. Does he?" Abigail looked at the little girl she had frightened, loved, missed, and could not yet hug. "I think he does, even when our voices are small." Lily nodded with the solemn authority of 6. "I prayed when I lost my purple sock, and Mom found it in the couch." "That sounds like strong evidence." Hannah laughed, and the sound loosened something in Abigail's chest. By spring, snow melted from the lower trails, and the red rocks at Garden of the Gods glowed under clear light. Abigail went there with the women from Sober Living after a Saturday meeting. She stood beneath sandstone fins and looked up at a sky so wide it made her feel both tiny and held. Tourists took pictures. Children climbed where signs said not to. A hawk circled above. Trina complained about dust on her shoes. Abigail lifted her eyes to the hills and thought of Earl at the gas station. She had not seen him again. She had asked at the gas station once, but the clerk said Earl came through at odd hours hauling feed or tools and never on a schedule. Abigail left a thank you note with the clerk anyway. It said, "You helped me return. Thank you for the coffee and the hymn." The clerk promised to pass it on. In April, Mercy Ridge invited alumni to speak briefly at a Sunday evening meeting. Abigail refused twice, then agreed because Denise said refusal based on humility and refusal based on fear were cousins but not twins. She stood in the group room where she had once crossed her arms against Marcus and looked at new faces. Gray, defiant, nauseated, skeptical, terrified. "My name is Abigail," she said. "I'm an addict, and I have 4 months sober." The room murmured greeting. She told them about the torn page beneath her pillow after withdrawal. She did not make it sound magical in a cheap way. She said she did not know how it got there. She said it did not stop cravings or erase consequences. She said it gave her words when she had none. I thought prayer had to be pretty, she said, or full of faith I didn't have. But the first prayer I could say was borrowed from a torn page. Lord, hear my voice. I said it outside a gas station after calling the man I used to use with. I said it while wanting to relapse. I said it without feeling holy. Then I hung up and came back. That was the miracle for me. Not that I suddenly wanted all the right things. The miracle was that I did one small right thing while still wanting the wrong thing. A young woman in the back wiped her eyes. Abigail continued. I have apologized to my sister without asking her to trust me immediately. That hurt. I have accepted help without pretending I'm entitled to it. That hurt too. I have learned that grace is not God saying the damage doesn't matter. Grace is Jesus meeting us in the truth and not leaving us alone there. She looked at Marcus. He nodded once. If you are in the depths, Abigail said, you do not have to produce a perfect prayer. You can start with one honest sentence. You can say it badly. You can say it angry. You can say it while shaking. Then tell someone. Walk to the doorway. Let help find you. Afterward, a woman named Jenna approached her. She was pale, thin, and newly admitted, with fear moving under her skin like electricity. Do you still have the page? Jenna asked. Abigail nodded. Can I see it? Abigail hesitated. The page had become precious, almost private. Then she took it from the pocket of her jacket. She carried it most days now in a small plastic sleeve. Jenna held it carefully. It's old, Jenna said. Yes. Do you think God cares if I stole from my grandma? Abigail thought of the ring. Hannah's face. Her own confession. Yes, she said. Jenna flinched, but Abigail continued gently. I think he cares because your grandma matters and because your heart matters. I also think he cares about you enough to help you tell the truth and make repair where you can. Jenna cried then, silently. Abigail did not fix it. She stood beside her until Brenda came with tissues. That night, Abigail returned to the sober living house and called Hannah. Their calls had become less scripted, though still bounded by care. I spoke at Mercy Ridge, Abigail said. You did. Hannah sounded surprised in a happy way. How was it? Terrifying. I hated it. I might do it again. Hannah laughed. That sounds healthy, I think. How's Lily? She lost another tooth and is emotionally powerful about it. Understandable. A pause. Then Hannah said, she asked if you can come to her spring concert. It's at the school. Crowded. Public. Owen and I talked. Denise can come with you if she's willing. You wouldn't come to the house, just the concert. We can sit together or nearby. I need to think through details, but maybe. Abigail sat down slowly on the bed. Hannah. I know. It's a lot. We can wait. No. I mean, thank you for considering it. I'm scared. I know. I don't want to hurt you by saying maybe and then needing to change it. You can change it if you need to. Abigail took a breath. I might be sad, but I won't punish you for protecting Lily. Hannah was quiet. When she spoke, her voice was thick. That is new. I'm practicing. Me too. In May, Abigail attended Lily's spring concert in the cafeteria of a Woodland Park elementary school. Denise came with her and sat 3 rows back while Abigail sat at the aisle beside Hannah, with Owen on Hannah's other side. Abigail wore a navy dress borrowed from Trina, and the purple star sticker tucked safely in the plastic sleeve with the psalm page in her purse. Her hands shook so badly Hannah noticed. You okay? Hannah whispered. No. Hannah looked alarmed. Abigail added, but I'm safe. Hannah nodded. Okay. Lily walked onto the risers with her class, wearing a yellow cardigan and a paper flower crown. When she saw Abigail, her eyes widened. Abigail lifted one hand in a tiny wave. Lily smiled so brightly that Abigail felt something inside her kneel. The children sang songs about spring, sunshine, and one confusing number about a frog who wanted to be mayor. Abigail cried through most of it. Owen handed her a napkin without looking at her, which was perhaps the kindest thing he could have done. Afterward, in the crowded hallway, Lily approached with Hannah's hand on her shoulder. The boundaries had been explained. Short hug if Lily wanted. No promises about future visits. Keep it light. Lily stood in front of Abigail. You came. I did. You cried. I did. Was it the frog song? Mostly. Lily giggled. Then she looked at Hannah, who nodded. Lily stepped forward and hugged Abigail around the waist. Abigail closed her eyes and held her gently, carefully, as if holding something sacred and breakable. She did not cling. She did not sob into Lily's hair. She let the child be the one to end the hug. When Lily stepped back, she said, Mom says you live different now. I'm trying. Do you still pray the voice prayer? Yes. I pray it when I'm scared at night. Abigail looked at Hannah. Hannah's eyes shone. Lily recited softly, Lord, hear my voice. Abigail swallowed tears. That's a good prayer. It's short. Short prayers can travel far. Lily seemed satisfied with this and ran to show Owen her paper flower. Abigail stood beside Hannah in the school hallway, surrounded by children, parents, backpacks, dropped programs, and the smell of cafeteria pizza. Life went on around them, loud and ordinary. Hannah said quietly, Thank you for not making that about you. The old Abigail would have bristled. The new one felt the sentence, let it sting, and heard the trust hidden beneath it. Thank you for letting me come, Abigail said. That night, back at the sober living house, Abigail placed the concert program under her pillow with the psalm page for one night only. She had started the habit as a patient desperate for comfort. Now it had become a way of remembering that healing often hid beneath ordinary places. Under pillows, in folded drawings, inside gas station coffee, at family meetings, beside school cafeteria risers, in apologies without excuses. Months later, on a warm July morning, Abigail woke before her alarm. Sunlight entered the blue room of the sober living house and spread across the floor. Trina snored in the next bed. From downstairs came the sound of Mrs. Keller grinding coffee. A truck passed outside. Somewhere a dog barked with unnecessary conviction. Abigail lay still and took inventory, as Denise had taught her. Body tired but not sick. Mind quiet enough. No immediate craving. Work at 10. Meeting at 6. Call Hannah tomorrow. Pay rent Friday. Write Cass, who had discharged from Mercy Ridge and moved into the room down the hall 2 weeks earlier, a note about not stealing all the creamer. Pray. She reached beneath her pillow and took out the psalm page. It was more fragile now, despite the sleeve. The crease had deepened. Lily's purple star sticker shone on the back. The underlined words remained. Out of the depths have I cried unto thee, O Lord. Lord, hear my voice. Abigail sat by the window. The mountains rose in the distance, clear under morning light. She thought of all that remained unfinished. Trust with Hannah was growing, but it was not whole. Owen was kind but cautious. Lily loved with a child's openness, but the adults guarded the pace. Abigail still owed money. Grandma's ring was gone. Repair there would require more than regret. Her father had not yet agreed to family counseling. Some nights Abigail still woke reaching for relief that was not there. Some days shame returned wearing old perfume and speaking in her own voice. But she was sober that morning. She was alive. She had keys to a house where she followed rules. She had a job where her careful hands were useful. She had women who knocked on her door if she missed a meeting. She had a sister who sometimes sent photos without being asked. She had a niece who believed short prayers traveled far. She had a God she no longer tried to impress before approaching. She had Jesus in the doorway of help, in the people who came for her, in the mercy that did not erase truth but made truth survivable. She bowed her head. Lord, hear my voice, she said. Then she paused, because for the first time she wanted to say more. Thank you for this morning. Help me live it honestly. Help me repair what I can and accept what I cannot rush. Help Hannah breathe easier today. Help Lily feel safe. Help Cass laugh but not hide. Help Nate, wherever he is, find a doorway before the dark takes him. Help me remember that I am loved before I am useful, and responsible before I am trusted. Help me receive grace without using it as an excuse. Help me pass it on. She opened her eyes. Nothing spectacular happened. No choir rose from the hallway. No beam of light landed on the psalm. Trina snorted in her sleep and rolled over. Mrs. Keller shouted up the stairs that whoever finished the coffee yesterday without starting a new pot was not living in spiritual victory. Cass yelled back that confession would happen after caffeine. Abigail laughed. She slipped the psalm page into the notebook on her desk instead of back beneath the pillow. Not because she no longer needed it, but because she understood now that the prayer had moved. It was not only under her pillow. It was in her mouth, her hands, her calendar, her apologies, her bus rides, her honest phone calls, her refusal to run when shame opened a door to the dark. She made her bed. She brushed her teeth. She put on her work shirt. Downstairs, she poured coffee, apologized to Mrs. Keller for being the one who had emptied the pot and started a fresh one. Cass wandered in wearing mismatched socks and said, "Look at you, making amends before 8. Do not make me regret sobriety this early," Abigail said. Cass grinned and hugged her from the side. At the kitchen table, Abigail wrote one line on a sticky note and placed it on the refrigerator, beneath the chore chart and beside a grocery list. "Lord, hear my voice." Mrs. Keller read it, nodded once and said, "Good. Now may he also hear that we need eggs." The house erupted in laughter. Abigail laughed with them, standing in a kitchen full of women rebuilding their lives one sober morning at a time. Outside, Colorado light touched the windows. The mountains kept their watch. Somewhere beneath the noise of coffee cups, footsteps, ordinary complaints, and the stubborn music of a new day, the psalm continued, no longer hidden, no longer torn only as a wound, but torn like bread placed into trembling hands. And Abigail, who had believed she had ruined every good thing, began again.